everybody, and welcome to the Reveal Report on a Monday. I thank you for joining us. Hope everyone had a great weekend and got outside to enjoy some fresh air and maybe a little sunshine. Maybe went to a park, raised your vibration. What do I mean by that, guys? I mean, try and be happy and smile and try and enjoy this season. Because there's so many great things to do. Today I went for a walk and got to spend a little time outside, getting some air and getting some sunshine. It felt really nice getting that vitamin D. So I hope you guys are enjoying your summer thus far. And I welcome all of you for being here on a Monday because, summer season, people go to their cabins, their cottages, they go to their beaches, vacations, and they enjoy themselves. And a lot of people won't watch the live part of the podcast, but they'll watch during the week on their cell phones or so forth, and I appreciate that. And if you're new here, we welcome you to it. The Reveal Report, what do we talk about? Well, all things supernatural, paranormal, the occult. I had this fascination growing up with ghosts and hauntings, and I was like, oh. And later on in my life, when I was living in LA, I had some experiences, and I wanted to know more about them, so I got into them. And man, there are so many unexplainable things that are out there in the world of the supernatural. And the deeper you dive, the more you become shocked. I mean, shocked. You didn't know this exists. A lot of people in everyday life walking around in the supermarket have no idea about some of the things that we discuss on this channel. So when we have guests like the one I have this evening, it's incredible because they're sharing information and knowledge that you might not even blink an eye or even think about. The topic of today's conversation is portals for rituals. It's a small, simple, when I say simple, I mean just I didn't have a long sentence for the topic, what we're going to get into. But the synopsis of this is there are areas, ley lines around this world where many believe to be very powerful. There's some type of energy. It's a type of a force field. Is it a portal? People go to these places for manifestation. They hold it in high regard and power. Places like Stonehenge, Area 51, these type of places. Well, our guest is going to get into it and maybe shed some light on the reasons they may choose certain places, possibly some locations and some of the type of rituals they may do. This really exists, and I'm so happy that you're here to join us and have this conversation, guys. Got to do some shout outs before we get right into it, and there's some amazing people I want to shout out to: Lisa M, Carmen S, and Paula G. Oh my goodness, 3 amazing women. I love this channel is powered by women. I can't believe it. It's like 80 or 90% women power. It's incredible. And even my guests, it's very rare that I even have a gentleman, a guy in the guest. So many women. I just hats off to all the women out there that watch and support the channel and my women guests. So much power. And thank you to all the amazing, strong women out there. Lisa M, thank you. Carmen S, thank you. Paula G for sending us a little something on PayPal to keep this show on YouTube for everyone to watch and consume, as opposed to exclusive content on Patreon. So give them a thank you in the comments below for doing that. Much appreciated. Guys, my guest that I'm about to bring on came on my show just a few weeks ago for the very first time, about a month or so ago. And we did already 11,000 views. People wanted to know more. They were interested. They wanted to hear stuff. And 11,000 views her first time. It's her introduction to our audience. And some of you may already know who she is. She does different podcasts, different shows and stuff like that. And she has a lot of experience in her field, what she experienced in her life, regardless of whether it be in the magical sense. She's just someone who's been around the world, has seen a lot of things, and she has a lot to share. I can't wait to hear from her. But first, we need to bring our co-host, who's been with us from day one, who's an author, who has many great books that you could get on Amazon, by the way. It is available on Amazon. And she's always bringing some great points to our conversation. Please welcome Miss Jessie Zaboter. Hey, Jess, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Good to be here, George.
What's going on? What's your bestseller? Out of all the books, what's the one book that does the best for you?
Probably the best is actually my book on grief, 5 Minutes of Grief with God.
Wow.
My second best would be my first book, His Kingdom, or his kingdom comes and powered the battle.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So, Grief is a book that talks about when you're in a bad place, or
Yeah, actually, I wrote it after the death of my son Josiah, and just it chronicles like 5 minutes of time a day with the Lord, and just spending 5 minutes a day working through grief. So,
wow.
very powerful book. Yeah,
All right, there you go, and it is available on Amazon.
it is. Yes.
Okay, excellent. At the end of the
Thank
show,
you.
we give everyone an opportunity to give their plugs and where they can watch and support what you do. Guys, my next guest, I'm going to bring on. I want you to welcome her. She has amazing knowledge, and she's going to get into it as we get into the topic of portals for rituals. Please welcome Eira Wulfnothsson. Eira, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me back.
It's a pleasure. And how is it in your situation? And in regards to that, I mean, do you get a lot of requests from other podcasters about, your content and possibly having you on and talk about these type of things?
Not a lot.
Okay.
My channel is Pipples of the Lord, spiritual warfare channel on YouTube, and it's brand new. I'm a baby, and I only have 4,000 subscribers.
Okay.
I do 2 podcasts a week. I pre-record, and I don't want to get big.
No,
really.
Okay.
No.
Well, we have to help boost those numbers because more people need to get that knowledge and information.
Yeah. Well, it's not everyone's cup of tea. It can be quite.
Yes.
It can be quite disconcerting for people. I am Christian, as some of your viewers know. I'm Roman Catholic, which that's very upsetting for some people. But I became Christian 5 years ago. Well, now almost 6. And I was born into a Luciferian family. You guys know that story from last time.
Yeah.
And I attended a very unusual and unique school. So what I speak about is how I can apply it to help people fight evil or inoculate against evil. I don't share things about magicka that they could use. Correct. Or I don't tell them, here's what you do for the best magic. I wouldn't touch magic ever in my life again. My entire soul belongs to Jesus Christ, and I'm in service to him. So I'm very careful how I talk about things and how I show things.
Well said. Perfectly done. Guys, we're going to get into it. I want to begin with a clip to set up the conversation. So if you're watching, turn up your volume. This clip just touches briefly on a particular area and portals. And I thought it to be interesting. So I'm going to play it, and then I'd like to get both your takes on it. So we begin with our first clip for the evening. Here it is.
Ancient astronaut theorist Andrew Collins and author Graham Phillips are investigating stone circles that are believed to be even older than Stonehenge. They have just arrived at the Ring of Brodgar, which is not only an important historical site, but also a hotspot for UFO sightings.
We're here at the Ring of Brodgar. It is a henge circle, so all around the outside of it is a ditch and embankment.
And one of the things that's been repeatedly found in connection with stone circles is that there's a very special geology associated with the landscape around them. And all of these seem to be able to manifest mysterious lights, and they almost appear to act like windows onto another realm. Because as you get higher, you can see that the whole place is like a perfect circle, a perfect hole out of this reality into another realm altogether.
So this place here could actually be some kind of portal between this world and another.
Precisely.
Interesting take. I'll begin with you, Jesse. What are your thoughts on what you just saw and different areas around the world that are considered some type of portal or energy ley line to do manifestations or used in many different ways? It's incredible stuff. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of information out there that there are such places, but the question is, I think, it's just fascinating beginning to look or think about those concepts of, can we access other dimensions? Are there, beings, whether aliens or demonic, that are overseeing? Are there people who oversee those sites? So all of that, gets into fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I say it's an interesting topic for sure. Ira, what are your thoughts on that particular clip that you just seen?
Yeah, it's sort of a blast from the past for me.
Mhm.
So I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm, over 65.
Okay.
So I first heard about what I call places of power within the mystery school.
Okay.
So that was a part of an understanding called geomancy, a discipline that you learned because no one performed magicka unless they were in a place of power. And what was a place of power? Well, back then, at the time, we didn't have Megalomania YouTube or Megalithomania YouTube or Andrew Collins or those guys. That didn't exist back then. And I happen to always have an affinity for geomancy. Now, geomancy is a science. It's not what you hear about in the occult. I'm talking about studying the Earth's energies. These are energies that you measure with scientific instruments, or you detect them with dowsing rods, or the most powerful and intuitive instrument, which is your body itself. Ancient people, of course, didn't have tri-field meters. But you all know that from ghost busting and UFO hunters and all these guys, everything happens within the electromagnetic frequencies. So before there were Ghostbuster EMF meters, in my case, when I began studying a sacred site, I did it for Princeton. So they sent me a tri-field meter that was made in a laboratory. So it measured the electric, the ionization in the air, as well as in the earth, AC and DC. So you weren't confused thinking you were picking up something man-made, as well as magnetism. So it was a very precise instrument. Now, before that instrument was invented, we were using stakes and copper wire. But I mapped, photographed, and documented this site for 8 years. I was alone. I was within it 7 days a week. I loved it. It was my happy place. I would take my 2 big dogs out with me, and I would just discover another thing on another thing and another thing. And the most profound part of this journey of studying this site, just documenting it, because I'm not a big brain person, really. And I would have experiences and I couldn't explain them. So I would hearken back to my studies in the mystery school of geomancy and places of power. And I would remember what I was taught, which was, you don't do magicka unless you're in a place of power. And I would think, well, why is this? Are these places preternatural, metaphysical, or are they scientific?
Yes.
Well, of course, at that point with the instruments, I was starting to realize something, and it is scientific as well as preternatural. These are doorways. Ancient people knew about them. There's an old saying that I remember hearing back in the old days. They unlock the mind and unleash the spirits. So, as all of you know, in Genesis 6, when the fallen angels came down on Mount Hermon, they brought magicka with them. Mm-hmm. Wrapped within that magicka that brought power and control and destruction to mankind were the sciences, which are God's science. So places of power, what you call portals for rituals, it sounds like something on Amazon or something. Yeah. Portals for rituals. What you see with these places of power, they are naturally forming. They are God's work. And, we can speculate or assume that God made places of power so we could grow closer to him. We could communicate with him. These places, because they're natural to the earth, the Hopi called them the spots of the fawn. They're speckled all over the earth. Mm-hmm. You might even be sitting in one right now and not know it.
Wow.
But these were made indifferent, so they could be used for holy worship and connection to Yahweh, to God, now to Christ, whatever, or they could be used for the unholy. So when the Magica was brought down, the Pharmakeia, the sorcery, this fallen angel technology, this understanding was, here's how you harness the energies, and here's how you build a temple, a ziggurat, a pyramid. So now we see with the oldest cultures all the same structures. We see the tall Tower of Babel, we see the pyramids, the ziggurats, etc., the stone circles, and we all scratch our heads and say, what is this? But upon scientific examination, they all have the same characteristics. They're all heavily laden either with limestone or granite.
Yep.
They have a heavy mineral content. They have underground water and sometimes found on fault lines. They have higher than average electromagnetic frequencies or measurements to them. They're also on magnetic anomalies, or they create magnetic anomalies themselves, such as the Great Pyramids and some of the larger structures do. And when you try to understand magnetic anomalies, the other half of the equation of electromagnetism, you realize that even a fumarole that's extinct still holds the magnetism. So you might be standing on a piece of land and it might be an old caldera or whatever, and you'll come across some archaeology. The most interesting part is 100% of our sacred sites are built upon these electromagnetic anomalies. 100%. Some say religion was born in them. You know, the mountains, all these mountains, well, you could actually look at them. That's where God lives in the Old Testament. You could look at them and say, well, that's kind of like a pyramid. What were they building the pyramid for? But if you want me to give you the hard, cold science, I will do that. It's a few paragraphs that I'll read. But what happened to me within this site, ancient people used them for invocation and evocation. So the whole idea of bringing this down to us, this information, was this is how you bring the fallen angels in. And of course, they wanted to come in. The pharaohs are called the living gods because they were merged literally with a fallen angel, a god with a little g. When they died, there was the opening of the mouth ceremony in order to release the entity from the human corpus. You look at idols and things that they would make that even in core shamanism, modern shamanism, they are always instructed to release the spirit from the object that they've imbued with the spirit. So this is thousands of years old. It's my belief it came down with the fallen angels in order to bring them in all the time. You know, we see it happening today with the internet. But these locations on the earth, they alter the consciousness as well. They affect our brains because of the higher than average electromagnetic frequencies, especially on what's called a discontinuity line, is where everything happens. So if you are at a haunted house, most likely it will fit the definition of what I'm going to read to you in a minute. All of this knowledge was understood. You saw the Mesoamerican temples. You've seen the Egyptian, the Mesopotamian, the ziggurats. They're all over the world. And a study was done where you see people making offerings of seeds and fruit. The study was done in a laboratory-controlled setting where the seeds that were left at the top of these structures had a 300% yield increase. So there is logic to the madness of these rituals that were performed on top of these pyramids. They would leave baskets of seeds. And we also see, like, for example, with Göbekli Tepe, that agriculture always springs up either just before or just after temple building. Is it the chicken or the egg? But there is a phenomenon that happens every morning at 3 a.m. And that's when the magnetosphere rushes over the planet wherever you are at 3 a.m. in the morning. It will rush across the planet and electrify anything that conducts. Now remember, underground water, a lot of minerals, elements, metals, crystalline stone, the human body, is 72% water. So these things all electrify at 3 a.m. in the morning. That's also known as the witching hour. And I know I'm giving you a lot of information and everybody probably wants me to be quiet, but
No, please continue. We want to hear this.
let me just read this paragraph. So what happened to me within the power spot were things that were absolutely inexplicable, things that you work so hard in Magica to manifest, to demanifest. Yes. Things appear, a cave that wasn't there before when you know it like the back of your hand, or there's suddenly a boulder that's there, you're time slipping. I'm not saying this happens. Now, I was going out 7 days a week every day. I loved it out there. I don't want you to think this was happening every single day. Sometimes this was a period of 8 years where I would come face to face with what I thought was a human being, and then it just disappeared. So these places do alter the consciousness. And when you look at all our oldest altars, including in cathedrals, they're all made of granite. These places are heavy in granite. You also see within the Catholic Church, everything is gold and silver. And you wonder, are they just being extravagant and ridiculous? Or was there a reason for it that we've all forgotten? I mean, we are literally people with amnesia, as Graham Hancock said. So let me just read you the general scientific definition, and then you can go with me and we'll talk about the ley lines all over the world and what happens when you find yourself in a portal. Jeez. Earth produces a magnetic field much like a bar magnet. Any compass needle tells us that the North Pole of our Earth magnet is near the physical North Pole, which is one end of the axis on which our planet rotates. Life on Earth would be impossible without this field called the geomagnetic field. So when I mentioned geomancy in the occult, the geomagnetic field deflects the solar wind, deadly blasts of electrically charged high energy particles from the sun. When our part of Earth rotates into sunlight at dawn, the geomagnetic field recoils from the impact of solar wind, and this affects the field lines, what you know as ley lines. Field lines can be thought of as linear incarnations of the magnetic field. Sprinkle iron fillings on a piece of paper above a magnet, and you will watch the fillings arrange themselves along these invisible lines of force. At dawn, remember the magnetosphere passing over the planet, at dawn, the magnetic field lines shrink, which makes them stronger. That means the strength of the geomagnetic field running through the land, our homes, our bodies, and brains, surges each dawn. Conversely, at night, the geomagnetic field lines are no longer being compressed by solar wind, and they gradually stretch into a long tail emanating from the dark side of the planet in a pattern reminiscent of a comet. This lengthening of the field lines weakens them. The end result of all this is that the geomagnetic field weakens at night only to come roaring back quickly as dawn approaches. There are places where the local geology makes this effect stronger than at others due to the principles of electromagnetism. Electromagnetism is a single word for a reason. Magnetism and electric force are inextricable twins. A moving electric current generates a magnetic field, and a changing magnetic field generates electric current and anything present that will conduct it. So everything conducts. The energy rises at 3 in the morning, pre-dawn. All the rituals are worked. The portals blossom open. This is how our electric power plants work, blah, 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 blah. So that gives everybody that has a little scientific craving a better definition. But ancient people knew that this was the best time to take a journey or go into the other world or summon or do incantation, whatever they were doing. And I was always told that magic is but a whisper of what it once was because we no longer use these sites. So you also see, and we'll go through some photos in a minute, serpentine imagery, as well as a lot of gold being used. And I can share with you about that when you feel good about running the photos. But also we have to remember that the blood altars, they were all built upon these places. So the sacrifices were done on the granite blood altars at specific times with a specific astrology. Planets were in certain positions, just like when you do your Solomonic magic or whatever, you have an understanding of that. It's pagan, ancient planetary magic, really, and it's across the board, come through all the way up into the Golden Dawn methodology. But it's really just an ancient form of something that everybody knew about, especially they knew way more than we did about it. They were part scientist and part metaphysician. Yes, they used it for evil, for power and control. Children were sacrificed. People were just sacrificed in the most gruesome manners, especially at the tops of the Mesoamerican, Mayan, Incan, at the tops of these, I should say Mayan and I can't remember the other name, but yes, thank you. And, the types of demands these entities were asking for, they were definitely not God. But yet we can turn around and then look at our oldest cathedrals and our oldest estates and find holy worship. Or the Christians would go to caves, or you would see the really holy people, they would go into caves. Caves have this same thing where they're able to alter their consciousness. I believe when we all pray, it's a kind of altered state of consciousness. You're meditating and you're connecting to the divine and the holy. So let me see if I forgot anything here. So when you're ghost busting, when you go to a haunted house or a cemetery, a lot of the cemeteries, the oldest ones, are built on places of power. And the headstones are that same granite telephone line.
Oh, look at that. That's why they use that stone.
Yeah. And the serpent imagery that we see, I mean, I know you guys know all about serpent imagery, and there's so many meanings to it that most of them are bad. But ancient people with petroglyphs would often use serpent imagery to communicate currency or electricity. Now, electricity is a big part of portals, right? And what happens in them, whether you're using it for holy or unholy. And so when you look at the serpent uraeus on the forehead of the kings, it was a symbol of kingship, and it was only the kings that had this knowledge and had this understanding, of course, because it's passed through the bloodlines of royalty. So the serpentine imagery has to do with power, places of power, and kingship. But yes, it also has to do with Lucifer and Satan and all of that other stuff too. They all have correspondences that weave together. And I'll let Jessie chime in if she can add to, because you have a lot of background in this too.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate all that you're bringing out on that. And, the gathering of power is so important to the elite, but part of that, is that interconnecting piece that their contracts, their authorities, their jurisdictions are coming from, the spirits that they're making those contracts with. And in that, they're going to do their studies, the different spirits they connect to are going to give them that knowledge, that wisdom into, what the power, what the authority is that they can gain from that. And, there is such a big part of it is, not just gathering stuff from the earth, but I appreciate that you brought out all the stuff, that connected to that. The geomancy is the necromancy, that they're going to gather things from the dead, and their secret knowledge is going to come through that contact with whatever spirits they're connecting to. You know, the serpentine image is really big with the Golden Dawn, and I bring out in some of my work, you know, how that interconnects with, you know, their worship of Lucifer, and then that going back to their Solomonic magic. You know, that in everything you have that hidden symbology of the serpent representing, you know, Lucifer. So,
There you go.
yeah.
I want to start sharing a few pictures and allow Eira to talk to us about some of these pictures. And Jesse, feel free to chime in on some of these photos I'm going to put forward. And I was sent a few. So let's begin with this one right here.
So that's the serpentine imagery again. These are miles and miles of hand-stacked rock walls. No one knows why they appeared or where they came from. It's very difficult to date rock walls. You can somewhat date them with the patina. However, you can be way off too. So according to the anthropological records, these were here before any human memory. And they're just everywhere. And when we measured them, they follow what's called the telluric currents, which are the lines, like I just read to you from that passage of the scientific background. They follow the ley lines or the telluric currents, which run as deep as only 3 feet into the earth. But these are following those lines. And then you can see on the head, there is a serpent's head. So it's a snake with a serpent's head,
Yeah.
but it is following that, what an ancient person would call a line of power. Now, animals give birth in these places. They're attracted to them. They're not considered geopathic stress lines. They're healthy lines. You know, they're natural to the earth. Again, what Jesse said is key, because when these places were utilized, they were invoking and evoking pure evil fallen angels. You know, it was very clear for that. So that's why when these places are, I guess, documented, I believe it's a harnessing, it's a corralling of these natural forces, which is a setup for that portal. And then they do the rituals and invoke the entities. Now, I can't really say for sure, but that was my understanding. That was what I was taught. But of course, the father of lies, Lucifer, you know, we have to be careful with what we think is the truth when it comes to the alternative power or understanding of these places as well. I can measure things with scientific instruments, no problem. And I can say, yes, there's something going on here. But I really don't. I mean, I don't know anybody who can actually say this is definitively how the angels come in, or maybe they don't even need us. They just come through because we think that they're going to come through. I don't know.
All right, let's move on to the next picture. Very interesting.
Yeah, another serpentine image on the top of a hill. At the top of this hill, the currents all run up it. It's got a very strong drop off where everything happens in that drop off area. It's right on the edge. Out in this site, it's a ceremonial landscape. So there's a lot of geoforms on the land. The rock walls, there's one shaped like Cygnus, very large. Overhead is the constellation Cygnus. This one is serpentine. There's a lot of serpent imagery. And I often wonder, archaeology has come through like in the 40s or 50s, but they haven't come through since. It's on private land. It's very remote. It's filled with rattlesnakes. It's hard to get to. You know, it's just going to probably stay in this very wealthy family for eternity.
Wow.
But the site itself is filled with serpent imagery. And I know that there are burial cysts, because the people, when they buried them, they would put them in the fetal position, head facing up, and then cover them with the stones at the top of these naturally forming cairns. And then an image would be either a wheel with spokes, which we're all familiar with, or the serpent on top of it. And that is a hand-stacked serpentine wall.
Wow. I mean, all that from that, it's pretty incredible. I have a few more. Jesse, you want to add to anything that so far?
No, that's great. Yeah,
Great.
let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Okay, great. Here's the next one here. Here,
Yeah.
yeah, you're very specific with the picture there.
It's another example. They're taking a natural formation of the Y on the left. That's a natural, and then the rock wall finishes down. Now, a lot of people will say, "Well, I think it's pioneer built or property lines or whatever." Some of them are pioneer built. I'm not denying that, but you can tell the difference because the ones that are older, there's trees growing through them that are very large that can be dated, and some of them are buried under earth that has built up over 1,000, 1,500 years. This is a very dry, arid area, and as you know, in Egypt or these dry areas, things preserve for thousands of years and they look like they were there yesterday. So this is a mysterious area. There's no explanation for it. Everybody can come along and say that's a pioneer wall, that's this, that's that. But these walls are nonsensical. They don't have entrances or exits, or they're not high enough to enclose animals. Mm-hmm. It's a very strange thing. And they're very elaborate and decorative. And they have a lot of cairns and what would be idols, at the end of each megalith that the walls connect to.
Okay, very good. Quick question here before we keep rolling. Can these places be anywhere? Anywhere? Yeah. Can they be in America, Canada, Europe, or is it just specifically?
They can be at your house. If you have a severely haunted house with no explanation, you've had your house blessed and gone through the whole thing, you might wonder if you're in one of these places.
Wow. Look at that. Interesting.
It can happen like in the formation of the buildings or the structure of the buildings too, where like when you have extreme areas where spirits are connecting, where you can get the cracks in the walls, the foundations, the ceilings in rooms where they're going to show up, and like those cracks can come and go. Where they'll just show up when the spirit, or during the witching hours, things like that. And then the next morning they're gone. There's nothing there. So people have reported things like that too.
Yeah. I will say, interesting what you say here is, I went to Lexington, Kentucky, and in Lexington we were doing, some research on the paranormal and certain hotspots and locations. And we would use dowsing rods to try and communicate and find certain spots. And the one thing, whether it be in Lexington, whether it be other parts of the U.S. like Connecticut, that brings it all together is limestone. Uh-huh. Limestone was in every location that we went to that was lively with action.
Yeah, and that was part of the pyramids as well. That was a part of the recipe for the pyramids. But these places, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're asleep, some of the ancient ones. And like, for example, when I came into this one, people hadn't been there for thousands of years. It's like it was just left untouched. And I almost felt like it required human consciousness. And if you're dealing with orbs and things, there's a saying within the paranormal community, the more you become aware of them, the more they become aware of you. I think it was might have been Christopher O'Brien. He was actually a friend of mine. Okay. He passed away. But it's a very slippery slope. Everybody's fascinated with the preternatural and the paranormal. I don't think it's healthy. Knowing what I know, you don't need to go do that. Prayer is the best Ghostbuster. Prayer is the best UFO buster. I once attended, and not by intention, it was that CE5 stuff with the UFO where they kind of do like a ritual with Stephen Greer, and they put like little garbage things on the altar. They don't even know what they're doing, but he knows. And my friend was going to film it for a documentary, and I was Christian at the time, and he goes, "Hey, can you just come and monitor some cameras in the dark and just sort of circle the circle and make sure the cameras are all going and the mics are all good?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, you know, I'm in Christ. I'm positioned in Christ. It's fine." And so, because I'm Catholic, everybody calmed down. But I ended up going in the circle praying the rosary, which is the Our Father 10, 5 times, 6 times, and the glory be to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning. I mean, that's a universal happy prayer for everyone. And not one person even got a picture of an orb that night. There was no activity. There was nothing. And he was invited there because they had so much activity. So it was kind of...
It's great. It looks like you closed the door, closed the doors. Right? Yes, exactly. All right.
And I've heard airline pilots say the same thing when they come under, a UFO's flying at them. They say a prayer and the thing goes away.
Wow. Now,
so they're fallen angels. I think
fallen
UFOs.
Angels.
Yeah,
fallen
of
angels?
course.
I want to just add to this conversation what you said. It's fascinating. I was in New York this weekend, and I was taking a train, and I got into an interesting conversation with someone, and they said something to me. I don't know the extent of the truth to this comment that was made to me, but I'm going to put it out there, and if anyone knows, please let me know. And he said that there is a written rule for pilots not to report, it's unwritten, I should say, not to report sightings or alien reports. If they do, you're brought in to do a psychiatric evaluation and are suspended or released. So they don't want you complaining. They don't want to hear about things because they're going to bring in your mental state.
Yeah, they're going to leverage that.
So this is what he was telling me they're doing to pilots who witness these things. I thought that to be very interesting, and then this conversation tied in. So
with our background, they would have never hired us.
No, 100%. All right, here's the next picture.
Okay, so this is something that you probably say, well, that's somebody just made that yesterday. But the patina on the stones is very old. Also, the pointer on the top is pointing to an older polar star, not north as you know it today. It's to the North Star. It's pointing to a different polar star. Also, there's serpent imagery in the form of what we call stone cookies or story stones. They're shaped like serpent stones that are left at the bottom of this piece. And I think I might even have a few pictures of it. But the white that you see on the left is something, it's a part of a mythology called the white firestone that fell from the sky. Well, 11,000 years ago, give or take, a comet flew over North America. It came from the east and flew over. It hit the ice caps. There was a lot of flooding. And they found these little spherules to know that it was a comet. Well, this looks like somebody poured white paint on a stone. You'll be able to see in the next few pictures what I mean. But it has to be heated to 3,000 degrees or above to become liquid, to splatter like it has. I've seen it in Pumapunku. I've seen it in, different South American and Mesoamerican locations. And nobody ever talks about it. It's like they walk right past it. This site is filled with it. So if you want to go to the next slide.
This one?
So this is the size of it. And you can see underneath it, at the bottom of it, that's where those stone cookies are. I wish I would have put one of the pictures in. But it's at the very, very top. It's very difficult to get to. Like I said, the place is filled with rattlesnakes. I walked with rattlesnakes for 8 years. And praise God, my 2 dogs, which each were like, one was 70 pounds, one was 130 pounds, they ran wild. And they were never bitten, and I was never bitten. Praise the Lord. But one of the things that my dogs started to do was they were dowsing with their bodies. The dogs will start to hunt what you're hunting. If you're hunting ducks, the dogs are duck hunting. If you're hunting elk, the dogs are always looking at elk. They just have this bond with humans that has developed over thousands of years. And I was hunting for energy. I was hunting for power spots and ley lines, and my dogs would lead me. I would be going right, and my dogs were well behaved, and they would refuse to follow me. I was to follow them, and they would always lead me to archaeology. Why? Because the archaeology was on the Telluric current line.
Wow, I did not know that. All right, here's the next one.
Yeah, and this is one of them that my dog led me to. So these are two little spirit windows, they're called in anthropology. They don't face anything that I can see, but I would assume there is a constellation that sets through these, because there are others like this, where when you sit at night and look through them, a constellation will set directly there on the solstice or equinox.
Okay. Here's a...
Okay, so that's the white firestone. It was sent to a lab, and it is almost pure quartz. As you can see, it fell as a liquid. And there are a lot of deposits of it, which are inside of caves even. So this stuff, these stones, and this is granite, a granite form of stone all over in this site. It's very old. It happened, 11, 12,000 years ago for sure. Now, it is near a volcano. However, volcanoes don't release something this pure, according to scientists that know better than I do.
So how do you think it got there?
It fell from the sky. The story, mythology is correct. Now, the people, when they would find a baseball-sized cobble or something they could carry that was covered in this, that was very important, and they would put it to the left of the burial sites. It would always be placed to the left. So I would scout these hills with binoculars or long lens camera, and I would look for a flash of white on the hillside, and then I would climb that hill and discover, is there a bone box or an ossuary? And what those look like, they're natural niches in the stone, megalithic. It's like a bunch of giant boulders all crashed together. There'll be like a tiny little area that's naturally formed. And so in the mythology of the path of souls of the people across the entire Americas, there's something called the path of souls. Probably a lot of you have heard of it. The Milky Way was where the souls would go up into heaven, and they would travel the Milky Way. And the Milky Way also had like a serpent's tongue. It has a Y in it. If you've ever seen the Milky Way clearly, you'll see that it has a Y at the end of it. And so the mythology was, if you went right or if you went left, you either came back or you went to the beauty world. But the people would mark these bone boxes, these ossuaries, because there was also the Uktena that went in winter, it went below the horizon. But what was it? It was a serpentine horned, scary giant creature that ate humans after they died. So they would put them into these little chambers to await, and then they would take them out and do the ritual of the burial or the funeral rites when they were able to burn them, and the soul could travel to the Milky Way.
Here, a quick question. Maybe there's zero significance to it, but I thought it to be interesting. You said they put it to their left. It would be put to the left. Does that mean left because it's usually east? It's facing east?
It would have been west, and
it would have been west.
These sites, in these sites it would have been west. West is the direction of the ancestors and death. And so their journey always went west around the world, and then up the sacred mountain, and then jumping through Orion. Cygnus was involved. There's an Ogi within Orion where stars are born. Scientifically, we know this. So they seem to know things that they shouldn't. that they couldn't have known. Now, I know we all think of left-handed path. You know, if it was brought by Lucifer, I mean, maybe somebody said, hey, make sure it's on the left, you know, the part of the magical formula.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I just know, and I mean, not to go into a deep conversation, but a lot, sometimes they'll do rituals, you have to face east, and it goes back to some of the Middle Eastern formats and so forth.
Right. Ad Orientem is facing the rising sun, the direction of resurrection, new life, new birth. In Egypt, there were initiation rituals where, look, if you got into a mystery school in Egypt, you could be crippled, you could be blind, but if you could answer the question, you got one of the greatest educations on the planet. Everyone thinks it's all magica and all of that. And you have to remember, no, these were schools of sciences, arts and sciences. Yeah, they were brought down by fallen angels, but a person who had this education would be a powerful person, and that's what they wanted. So, but you could be crippled or blind. The odd thing that is, you know, gives me faith in humanity was these adepts and imperators. The question was, how do you know if someone is suffering? And everybody would make an answer like, well, they're limping, or they're whining, or they're complaining. They told me. The correct answer that gained entrance into these schools was, I know someone is suffering because I'm suffering.
Wow.
And they wanted them to have this empathy and compassion because they would be educated to work tremendous rituals under commission by royalty and penalty of death against the public, which could include their families, their people in the cities or whatever. They wanted people that would say no to the ruler, people like Daniel. You know, people that had a moral compass. They did want that, but that, of course, was hijacked by evil and evil people and that part of the priesthood. It was trying to be good. And so, speaking of East and Ad Orientem, in these first initiations, they would be taken to a temple pool, and they would sit on the edge of it, and they would be told, you are going to dive into this pool and swim to the very bottom. In the pool were 40-foot crocodiles.
Jeez.
So they were told to sit there for 72 hours, and then they would be told to jump in. What we know from science today, people tell me this isn't true, but I think it is true. What we know from science is if you have faced your death for 72 hours, you lose your fear of death. We also see this recorded in when they would put the adepts or the neophytes into the tombs, the stone tombs, and cover them with a stone slab and not tell them they were getting out. But they would be left for 3 days, usually high on blue lotus. And then they're thinking they're dying because no one's letting them out. No one's bringing them food or water, and they're tripping. They're journeying out into the universe. So these neophytes would dive into the pool. They trusted their imperators, their masters, and they would dive into the pool. And the ones that did would find a light at the bottom of the pool. They would swim past the crocodiles, and they would come up the other side with the rising of the sun. They timed it perfectly. So when they came up, they would be facing east outside of the temple to the rising sun. And that was initiation, which is commencement.
Wow.
It's an invitation into the next degree or grade. Now, what these young men didn't know was, of course, they were very valuable. They had fed the crocodiles and probably drugged them, and they knew they weren't going
to get them. Again, it's very sneaky, right? You don't know what you're getting into with part of these schools. Let's go. We got a few more pictures I would like to get your input on. How about this one right here?
This is in Scotland, I think. I don't know where it is, but it's very familiar to me because of what in the site I studied. You know, it's the same type of thing. Again, serpentine imagery.
Yep. And
we all know what that is.
Yeah.
And I often wonder if Tamu Nafal were not buried in these locations, or the Nephilim, that they didn't bury them under big serpent, effigies.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, some of this stuff here. I'll tell you. Oh, look at this one.
This is Ohio. The Ohio Serpent Mound. It's a serpent with, a lot of people believe it's consuming an egg.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse probably knows way more than I do about that kind of symbolism. It is on a magnetic anomaly, as well as a continuity discontinuity drop off. As you can see, somebody, I believe I heard, this has been a long time ago since I studied this stuff, guys. It's been like 15 years. This is not something I do every day. Yeah. But a meteorite struck, so that it's heavy in iron at this location, which is also conductive and all of that. All of these locations have a lot of orb activity, a lot of light anomaly. Now we know with earthquakes near fault lines, when the pressure on the granite will release bursts of colored lights, and we know about sprites and elves in the clouds and on the earth, and we know about all these things. They are naturally occurring, but this is where things happen in these places. Time slips and strange people appear, and things fly by you, and this is where it seems to bleed into our reality and bleed out. And also with Magica, you guys probably experience this too. You'll hear a loud pop when something comes into our reality, almost like a gunshot. And they report that a lot in the Bigfooting world.
Oh, interesting. Really I wanted to touch briefly. You said that's in Ohio, and it's interesting because a lot of case studies for me, when studying some of this stuff, there's a lot of paranormal activity in Ohio. It's known for a lot of well known for a lot of Satanism.
Wow.
Well, you have the highest witches
in Ohio.
You get the Grand Witches Ball there every year and stuff.
Correct. And in fact, I don't know if you knew this, it's so lively, and there's so much about it that Netflix wrote a series. And the series is called The Devil in Ohio, which is about a satanic cult that does rituals, sacrifice for power and this type of thing. So this is it's fascinating to me that you said this is in Ohio and so forth. And then I've studied other parts of this type of stuff in Ohio. So interesting connection.
There's a ton of stuff in Ohio, all throughout our continent in that vicinity. I don't know if you would call it the southeast area. There's the Adina Hopewell mound culture. One's older than the other. But to me, all of the hinges and the geomancing and the geoforming on the earth, the symbology there, it all is fallen angel stuff.
All fallen angel stuff.
Yeah. And they harness the energies and invoke so many things. They probably got 1,000 evil egregores going on out there and fallen angels out there. And, people today are now bringing these things power again, and they're rising up. That's why we see so much evil. We're in the days of Noah all over again. Our scientists are doing chimeras in the lab, and children are being sacrificed. And, we know that sacrifice is also sacrificial rape, the trafficking of these poor children. It just, I can't even hardly think about it.
Yeah. It's a dark time.
It's so bad. It just gives me, it's creepy.
It's creepy,
sad.
But we
I want to go, it makes me want to go do really bad things to people that do.
Yeah. I remember, I can't believe you said it. I think I gave this in my testimony to Jesse, where I remember saying publicly, I was like, Lord, let me loose and let me go seek vengeance on these people. I'm so angry. Yeah. I'm willing to, like, I'm probably gonna go to jail, but let me get at least one of them. And the Lord said to me, at least
one.
I said, let me do at least one. I said that, and I recall the Lord saying to me, and maybe it's just my imagination, but the Lord said, that's not your job.
Yeah.
Vengeance will be mine, and you'll witness it. And I was like, whoa, I got to be visual. I must have, how is this thought entering my mind that the Lord said at that time,
Yeah.
that's not your job. That's not what you're here to do.
Praise God.
Praise
God
God.
love you. Wow.
God bless. I'm grateful. Yes. All right. So we got 3 more here. Here's
Okay.
the
So
Egyptian.
we're going to talk about gold. So can you go forwards and backwards and look for the gold stuff?
Okay. Let me see here.
You can.
This one.
Yeah.
Here?
Okay. So we all hear about the priests, lawmen, the breastplate of gold that had the 12 precious stones that represented the 12 tribes of Israel, and then the Urim and Thummim stones, precious stones. Everybody wanted gold. Why? Gold is conductive. When you're in a power spot, you want to be covered in gold. Now, in the mystery school that I was in, and within that occult order, all the implements were gold. The pentacles were gold. The tables were covered in gold. The wands were gold. Everything, swords, athames, everything, chalices, gold. All gold. Everything, jewelry, whatever it was, whatever you needed to work your magic, it was either covered in gold, plated in gold, or it was solid gold. So you have to think about the expense of that belief, that there is something to it. Now, every morning at 3 a.m. when the magnetosphere rushes over the planet, if you're in a power spot over underground water with the higher than average, blah, 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 and you're covered in gold, the Egyptians had fingertips of gold. They had sandals of gold. So there's another picture in here of the fingertips there. We have this gold. But they also did something else. Now, I have no dog in this fight. I'm going to talk about something called mufkuts. In Egypt, the letters are MF, KTZ, mufkuts. Some of you guys know a version of it in modernity called ormus. It's monoatomic gold. Go back to that little Egyptian black and white one if you can. They would make white powdered gold via alchemy, via the process of salvate coagula. And they would make little pyramid-shaped cones, and the pharaohs would consume them. You can imagine how healthy that was. I don't know. People swear by ormus. Now, I have made ormus, and I've consumed it for a brief amount of time. It does bilocate, like it'll be inside of the bottle, and then it'll be all pooled in your drawer outside of the bottle. How do you explain that? It is a weird substance. Of course, that was the liquid form of it called tears of the gods or sperm of the gods. Gold is also called the skin of the gods in multiple cultures. So these guys were trying to become a power spot.
Let's go, and I'm just gonna go back to this one.
They were becoming living portals that when they evoked or invoked, especially invocation, bringing the fallen angel into them, the living gods, the pharaohs. This was done in multiple cultures. Now, this had to have been taught to them.
Of course, yeah.
They didn't think of this all on their own.
No, this was 100% brought to them. So somebody gave this information to them.
Yeah, somebody. We know who that somebody is.
Yes, we do. It's a wild time that we live in, and this show is just to shed some light and put some information out there for people to realize.
Now, let me scare people. Yeah. People that have this unusual curiosity. I want you to know there is a price. If you want something, you give something. If you take something, you leave something. That's reciprocity. It's also the basis of sacrifice. You think you're making an exchange with Lucifer if you're a celebrity. If you give me 20 years of celebrity, I'll, worship you and do music videos where I look like I'm, worshiping you. Yeah. You don't name the price. You think you do. I don't care if you're the highest ranking person in your order or your society or your fraternity. You think that you're making a deal, but you don't name the price. And if it is not painful for you, it's not worth it to the devil. Yeah. And when it's time to collect that price, you don't name the time. You think you do, but you don't. Yeah. It comes and you say, boy, that car accident that happened where my entire family died or whatever, it's just bad luck. It's just terrible. Why would God allow this to happen to me? Well, you're an occultist, number one.
Yeah.
But they come, they collect the price, and then in the end, what happens to you at your death? You know, Luciferians are told you'll have a really high ranking position in hell, and hell is like here, and it's no big deal. You'll have a great time. He's the father of lies. Why anybody believes that, I don't know, but they do.
Yeah. But they
Doesn't
do.
matter if we don't believe it; they believe it.
Yeah. It's incredible what people will do. It truly is, and for many reasons. Sometimes not even for fame or fortune. I've come across in my time people that are just down on their luck, financially crippled, trying to, you know, make that other paycheck to pay for them, or whether they got a girlfriend and a young kid, so forth. And they would say, I'll do anything, any type of magic. And I'm like, I'm not helping you. I can't help you with this stuff. You're insane. You have no idea what you're saying to me. You're just insane. I'll do anything. So there are people, some people are just willing to do whatever, but there's a consequence and there's a repercussion for the actions.
And the devil will walk up to you right on the street and talk to you like a human being. Like you think it's just some dude, you know, hey, you want to go get drunk? Come on.
100%. There's there's a priest that actually gives a testimony about visiting Miami, and the devil.
That's Father Rahel.
That's him. The devil himself said, what are you doing here?
Yeah, but he was also really strongly led by God and chosen to be a priest.
Yeah.
God
Father, he's amazing.
A move on him. He is wonderful.
He's wonderful. So
I'm glad you brought that out too, because, you know, I've known people that, you know, the top of the system, they've served Lucifer for, you know, over 40, 50 years. And, you know, they've had to, like, what's required of them, they've had to not be out in the face front, you know, at the very top. They're behind the scenes. They, you know, live very average lives. They don't have extravagant, you know, they don't get to get the fame, the fortune, or anything, you know, here on earth. And they're told, you know, one day that they will. But, you know, then they get towards the end and they realize, you know, your top individuals in the system have died, and, you know, they get nothing. At the end, they get nothing, and they realize that. And, you know, so it's interesting. And that's the time, you know, several of those individuals, that's the moment the Lord has sent, you know, people to witness to them, was in those very last moments of their lives. You know, literally they were snatched from the fire at the very end. But, you know, it's interesting that, you know, there's some, they give everything and get nothing in return, you know.
George Washington, as the mythology goes, his slaves would testify to it, that his last moments he converted to Christianity, Catholicism, but he converted to Christianity. And also, it wasn't LaVey's last words were, "Oh, I think I made a mistake."
Yes, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that. We had a particular individual, the pastor from California, who was involved with that. He gave his testimony here, and it's on the show. He basically said that he got into spiritual warfare with Daniel with LaVey because he had his daughter. His daughter wanted to escape the rituals and the life and kept it
you mean
secret.
Pastor
Yes,
Dave?
Yes.
Mhm.
I actually kind of know him. A friend of mine knows him really well.
Yeah.
He's a good person.
Yeah, he comes across that way, and we've had him on the show several times. And I remember saying that day that I had him on the show discussing astral projection, which is something you do in witch warfare all the time. You're taught that night, Eira, was one of the most horrific spiritual attacks I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Well, you know, one of my dearest friends actually is a mandated exorcist. He's my priest, my confessor as well. But we have some conversations sometimes. And, you know, when I share with him what has happened to people like us, Um, it's like just another day at the office. There are so many of us out there. It is amazing. Everybody that ends up going for exorcism, either the solemn rite or the minor rite, they have dabbled in the occult. And he will say, you know, that is one of the things that I see the most, that they think it's just a tiny little thing and they forget about it, but it was the doorway that opened.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect segue to go into our after show and say goodnight. I 100% agree with you. It's that doorway. So folks, this is a warning. We do so many different topics on the show, and it's not we're not glorifying. We're telling you no, don't do it, and why not to do it, because you go through so many horrible things. I mean, I could give a million different stories of how many bad things happen to others and myself in dabbling in the occult.
But it also shows the magnificence of our God and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. The way creation was made, how magnificent it is.
Nothing is stronger than the Lord's light. And if I compare how I lived in that time of my life and how I am today, I'd jump on my knees and give God all his glory in public on a street. I have no problem with that, because he is great. He is almighty. He saved my life. So I hope that whatever testimony, whatever I could do will help even one person get out and change their life.
That's
all right.
Beautiful. And too, if I could just quick share to end off with, you know, for all those who may have dabbled, you know, the solution is simple. We have a God who, you know, he purchased us to be a kingdom of priests by his own precious blood. And, you know, his word says, how do you come into that right relationship with him? 1 John 1:9, you know, confess your sin, and he is faithful and just to forgive you and to cleanse you from all unrighteousness. You know, ask for that forgiveness, confess, and receive the work that he has done for you. So I pray that blesses some of you out there listening tonight.
Amazing. Well said. Eira, anything you'd like to add to everyone before we hop on to the after show on Patreon?
Thanks for having me. God bless you both, and God bless your audience.
Thank you so much. Jesse, anything you'd like to add?
No, I just appreciate the sharing tonight, and what a great conversation. So a wealth of knowledge tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. On behalf of Eira, Jesse, and myself, I thank you all for watching. Hope you join us for the after show coming up next. Have a great week, everyone. Get out there. Try and stay away from the negative things out there. The news, the media, it's trying to bring you down, and stay positive. Most importantly, give grace, glory, and praise to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching. God bless everyone.